Hello and welcome to part 3 of episode 200. This is the Project Management Podcast at pm-podcast.com and I am Cornelius Fichtner. Nice to have you back again for this milestone. In case you haven't listened to either part 1 or 2, then let me just quickly remind you again what it is that we are doing for our anniversary episode. We asked 20 thought leaders in project management one simple question. In your opinion, what is the number one challenge that project management is facing today? And how do we best address it? The 4 parts of episode 200 is the compilation of their answers. So let's move on and hear what Mark Horstman, Jack Ferraro, Lindsay Scott, Terry Dersher, Soma Bhattacharya and Andy Kaufman have to say. And when you are done, don't forget to watch part 4, in which you'll see the several video responses that we received to our question.
Folks, my name is Mark Horstman of Manager Tools, and I'm here to answer the question that Cornelius put to us: what's the biggest challenge facing project management today and how do we address it? At the risk of sounding like the old saying of, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, my belief is the biggest problem facing project management today is the increasing focus on technology as a solution to more effective projects, when in fact, the only solution that's ever existed when it comes to projects is people and people doing good work in a timely way. I see far too many projects, and specifically project managers, focusing on the documentation and the reporting of the work that their team is doing. I see all kinds of discussions and discussion forums and websites about the latest technological improvement in project management. How can we have the website email people to let them know when things are due? How can we make sure that everybody sees the same version of a given report? How can we make it easy for people to report on the work that they've done? These are all really good improvements, but they're all at the margins. I don't think it's right to say they're like rearranging deck chairs in the Titanic, because that implies that project management is going in the wrong direction. And in fact, project management is a hugely important field that potentially can improve the overall face of management for the next 100 years. And the technology world has played a big role in that, because there are so many tasks associated with so many technology projects and technical projects in the world. Project managers have a lot to teach management and managers all over the world about how to be more effective in getting things done internally in organizations. But the focus, again, is on technology rather than on what's really important. Mike Ozin and I, my business partner at Manager Tools, are famous for Horstman's Law of Project Management, which is as simple as who does what by when. Folks, it doesn't matter how great your software is. It doesn't matter how transparent your website is. It doesn't matter how easy it is for people to report on their work, or how easy it is for the website to let people know, hey, you've got a deadline coming up, or how easy it is to create a report which has red, yellow, green, and make sure everybody knows when there are resource constraints and so on. All that stuff is great. And it doesn't matter if people aren't doing the work in an effective way and in a timely way. So it's not as bad as deck chairs in the Titanic. It's a wrong analogy. I admit it. Please don't send me email and tell me I'm wrong, because project management is doing good things. That said, what's really important for project managers to learn is how to build relationships with the right people, get to know the people on their team, and also with the people that they support internally, and make sure they know people well enough to get the best work out of them possible. Project management in a microcosm is just management without the role power. It's a great transitional role for young managers, particularly to learn how to manage with influence, with relationship power, rather than role power, which later and later in one's career becomes less and less important. If you want to be more effective as a project manager, get to know the people you're working with, get to know whom they're serving and what it is they want, spend time developing relationships with those folks, and frankly, The better you are as a project manager, the more you know about your people and the more you can influence them to get what you want done, the more likely you are to look good as a future executive, because that's what executives do, work with other people without role power in order to get things done. Cornelius, thanks for all the hard work you do on the Project Manager podcast. We're thrilled to be associated with professionals like you. Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Jack Ferraro with My Project Advisor, and I am weighing in on this important question that Cornelius has posed to us, which is, what is the number one challenge that project management is facing today, and how would we best address it? In my experience, the biggest challenge today is the matrixed management of projects and the multitasking that in sense ensues and kills productivity. Multitasking is, I believe, is the biggest threat we have to our projects because of our inability to get the proper throughput of getting a high number of strategic projects done in a timely basis. The way this is addressed is by applying essentially an engineering or systematic approach to managing projects, to managing multiple projects. It's about applying a multi-system project method using a lot of the planning tools and capabilities that we are well aware of, but doing so in a way that fundamentally organizes the structure of project resources to be able to accomplish twice as much output than is normally accomplished in most organizations. This multi-system project approach, or this engineering approach to scheduling projects and managing resources, can be found at www.myprojectadvisor.com. Thank you for your attention and best wishes in 2012.
Hi, my name's Lindsay Scott and I'm a Director for Project Management Recruitment Specialist in the UK, Aris People. You can find our website for more information at www.arispeople.co.uk. As we see it, the number one challenge for project management both here in the UK and globally is the credibility and perception of project management by the wider society. When you ask anyone who exists outside the project management community, what is project management, there are generally three answers that come back. The Apprentice, the popular TV show, both from the UK and the US, is often cited, with an impression that project management normally involves trying to manage a dysfunctional team with lots of fighting and tears, which ends up with the project manager being fired. The second, you either work in IT, and the third answer will invariably include some high-profile project failure. Here in the UK, that might include things like the government-led projects like the NHS IT programme, or more publicly visible projects like Terminal 5, Heathrow baggage handling. The project management profession has to change the public's perception of the work they do, and to do this, it needs to think about how it markets itself to different parts of the population in order to raise the profile of the profession. Professional bodies in project management must play a large part in this. Professional bodies have made good inroads internally. What I mean by that is that they've been making advances in project management standards, processes, management skills, learning and training opportunities, knowledge sharing and support. All these things have helped to improve the maturity of project management as a profession, yet because they are all internally focused, the wider population still knows very little about project management. Now is the time to make sure we are not just inwardly focused. Sure, the development of the profession carries on internally. We still need to mature the profession. Yet we need to make sure that project management becomes much more part of the nation's psyche. Project management as life skills is just one such area. I would love to see project management skills on the school curriculum. Can you imagine school children learning the value of being able to plan and structure school projects? how to get their team of school friends working collectively together to achieve something, learning that you can make things happen with a little bit of process. Those within the profession know that project management, projects and their outcomes are around us every day. We know that the consumer products that we choose to buy, the food on the table at mealtimes and the websites we surf each day are all a result of projects and the people who work with them. Maybe the next time a new super sports stadium is unveiled or a new must-have product is launched, we as a profession should be promoting how these things have managed to be built or made and the stories of the people behind them who made it happen. Professional bodies are not the only ones to be charged with the task of improving the credibility and perceptions of project management, using their own status to market and promote. That task also needs to belong to everybody who works within a project management role, and indeed every organisation that is project-centric. If project management is truly to become a profession like those within the medical, engineering and accountancy professions, we really need to be raising a positive awareness of what we do and changing those perceptions that exist today.
And here is the response we received from Selma Bhattacharya. She is a project manager and runs the website steppingintopm.com. I think the challenge for project managers will always be completing projects on time, on budget, and on scope. No matter how many tools we use and the piles of certifications we have, at the end of the day, you have to work with your team, and a project is dependent upon that. These days, your team is all over the globe, and being geographically dispersed makes communication even more tricky. So personally, I think communication and resource management are the trickiest hurdles ever. To enable better resource management, understanding a team member is very important. What makes them happy, the kind of person they are, who will they team up best with? If I had the option, I'd definitely let them take the Myers-Briggs personality test. I think that would solve a lot of problems. For communication needs, ask questions. Encourage people to interact within the team through wiki, blogs, etc. Keep a point of reference when it comes to requirements or the plan. Be open as a project manager as much as possible. And encourage open and free discussion always.
Hello, Cornelius, and hello to all your listeners out there. My name is Terry Dorscher. I'm the PPM practice lead at BOT International. You can find my blog there at the BOT International website, PPM Postscript. When I think about the question that you posed with respect to the biggest challenges that's facing project management in the 21st century, it caused me to go back and think about where we were a century ago and what was going on then. And the thing that I found very exciting was that it was a time of great transformation. We were going from the horse and buggy to the horseless carriage, and many other exciting innovations were really in progress. So when I think about where we are today with project management and how project managers are operating, the thing that struck me is that we're working really, for the most part and with most projects, 50-year-old concepts. And when you compare that to all the changes that are going on in the world with respect to our business environments, the global economy, the kinds of projects that we're doing, the workforce and the changes within it, and quite frankly, some disillusionment with traditional approaches that we've been using, that kind of leads us to understand why Agile and Scrum and new techniques like that have gone mainstream. And then I think it's also important to look at the success rate of what I like to call under the radar projects, those that never seem to quite make the portfolio list, but are nonetheless a very important part of creating new products and services and assets within our organizations. I think this is very important. I think what we're going to see in the coming years is going from a, if you will, a closed shop where project management is a somewhat mysterious and not well understood discipline from those that are outside of it into more of an open shop. Because if you stop and think about it, projects are nothing more than mechanisms for creating change. And change is everywhere around us. So I think we're going to see the idea of this brave new world and a new kind of project management develop where it is much more ubiquitous and important element within our organizations. So I think that when you think about what that means, we're going to see PM approaches really transform to better align with all these modern uncertainties that we're seeing in a lot of different kinds of projects. Uncertainties in terms of how we're going to approach them, uncertainties around what the outcomes will be and what the requirements are. And that's going to really drive us into a more collaborative, less prescriptive approach to project management. It's going to have more of a design-oriented focus rather than a tool and rigid methodology focus that is kind of in place right now. So when I think about the challenges before us, I think it's very exciting. I think it's going to be the next step in terms of the evolution of being able to effectively manage change, and I'm very much looking forward to being part of that. Thank you for allowing me to share my thoughts with you today.
Hello, my name is Andy Coffin. I'm the host of the People and Projects podcast, which can be found, not surprisingly, at peopleandprojectspodcast.com. The number one challenge that project management is facing today, I would say, is relevance, and here's why I say that. I have the real privilege of intersecting with hundreds of organizations around the world. If only you could see the body language of people walking in to say our Essentials of Project Management workshop. Often they're in the workshop maybe because they were voluntold by their management. I just don't often hear people saying, awesome, we're going to learn about project management today. Interestingly, when people leave at the end of the workshop, we regularly hear comments like, I really enjoyed this. This is so much better than what I expected. I can use this stuff. Well, as much as I'd like to think it was brilliant facilitation, I know better. The problem is that expectations were so low coming in. And why? Because most people see project management as relevant for someone else. It's for those people over in IT, right? Or project management, oh yeah, that's for those really big companies. It just wouldn't make sense for us here. Or my favorite, oh, we're agile, so we don't need a process. Project management is often viewed as too academic. It's good in principle, but not relevant to me. It's the classic person in the pew syndrome who listens to a sermon and says, I know somebody who needs to hear this, instead of realizing that message was for me. Now, the challenge for project management is for people to understand it's completely relevant anytime we want to go from idea to delivery. Ultimately, that's what project management's all about. It's not about process for the sake of process. It's about delivery. The problem isn't that project management is an immature field of study. Let's face it. We've been managing projects since at least the pyramids or the Tower of Babel, right? The problem is that we often don't see project management for what it is, applying the knowledge and skills and tools and techniques to help us deliver. Us, all of us. So how do we lead the charge for relevance in our organizations, especially when the culture isn't exactly tuned to this mindset? Well, it can be tempting to think we have to change the culture first. I walked into a company some years back and saw their credo on the wall. And one line in it said, we will plan less and execute more. I have to tell you, I thought, this should be an interesting environment to teach project management in. And yet the class went great. When we truly understand how relevant project management is, we can find ways to adapt it to the culture. But isn't it better if we change the culture first? Well, chances are you've heard of author and Harvard professor John Kotter. He's been a brilliant voice on leadership and change for decades. I had the opportunity to interview John on the People and Projects podcast earlier this year. John's classic teaching on leading change puts culture change last, not first. And this correlated with my interview with Dr. Ed Schein, the MIT guru who actually invented the term corporate culture. Talking to this guy was like talking to Yoda. But you know what? Even Yoda agreed that if you try to change culture first, your efforts will be dead on arrival. Now, time doesn't allow me to elaborate, but nonetheless, the good news is you don't have to change your company culture before project management can be relevant enough to make a difference. So what do? Well, first, you have to make sure you have a firm understanding of how relevant and practical project management really is. And if you still think it's about Gantt charts and Microsoft Project and filling out forms and creating PMO kingdoms, well, you're in trouble. When you realize it's not just a matter of if change will occur in your project, but a matter of when, and when you can progressively elaborate your plan so the gap between plan and reality is minimized, you are well on your way to seeing project management as your friend, not a foe. Second, instead of trying to change the culture, find where the culture is most dissatisfied. A clear principle of change is that if people aren't dissatisfied, they're not likely going to change. So pilot some adapted project management processes to address where there's dissatisfaction. And where a little more planning and coordinated management of change shows value, highlight the benefits and then do it again. And as people see, for example, how a little risk planning helps you become better problem finders instead of problem solvers, the culture can, over time, change. Third, commit yourself to being a learner. Just being a regular listener to Cornelius' excellent podcast shows you're already on this path. But I want to stress this because, quite frankly, I run into plenty of people who say they have 15 years of project management experience, but they really have 1 year of experience repeated 15 times. I mean, they aren't committed to continually refining their skills and learning from past mistakes and actively networking with people in the field. Commit yourself to being a master at this craft and teach those around you as you learn, which is certainly a key responsibility for any of us who aspire to be effective leaders. So here's my bottom line. Project management is relevant anytime you and your organization need to deliver. It's when we see how relevant and practical project management is that we will see even greater contributions made. Get on board with that mindset, find strategic places to showcase the value, and commit yourself to keep getting better. It's a bright future for you and project management as a trade as we do this together.
And that was part 3 of 4 of our anniversary episode. That's it for right now. Thank you very much for listening. Please join us again in part 4, where you can watch the video responses that we have received. As always, you can find us on the web at pm-podcast.com. Send your emails to info@pm-podcast.com, and when you write, please tell me where in the world you are writing from. Until next time.